What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Gonna do another episode in a series I'm calling The Return of. Somebody thought of that name, obviously, because of the title I had, The Return of Cold Wave, and I thought, yeah, you know what? That actually sounds pretty good. I think that sticks. So, I like to pick controversial cards for The Return of. I don't want to troll anybody, but I like to bring evidence to the table. I want ultimately for us to have good debates, respectable arguments. It wouldn't be very fun if I picked a card like Magician of Fate that everybody is pro unbanning. You know, there wouldn't be any controversy. There wouldn't be any excitement. There wouldn't be any, you know, intelligent debate. But if I pick some highly controversial cards that, you know, half of the people are pro and half of the people are against, then we're starting to have fun. Now, the card that I'm picking is Sinister Serpent today. This card needs to come back. It needs to be unbanned. And I look at it, and what I came to the conclusion once I really analyzed it was, quite frankly, I'm not sure that Sinister Serpent should have ever been banned, let alone I know that it needs to be unbanned now, and it was never really that powerful of a card. The best analogy for why I believe that Sinister Serpent was banned would be comparing it to the steroid era in baseball. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically in the 90s, you had a few select players, actually a good majority of the league that was headlined by a few select players such as Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire and Roger Clemens. And basically what happened was these guys put up astounding numbers. They broke records and shattered them. I'm talking records that had stood for 50 and 40 years that people thought would never go down. And in maybe a 6-7 year span, they shattered the records, and the ratings were up, and everybody was making so much money, and baseball loved it, and the fans loved it. And then what happened was, about 5 years after the steroid era, it came out that, well, basically about 40% of the players were cheating. And all of these guys who put up these records and now held them, they were all cheating. But there really wasn't anything that anybody could do because most of these guys' careers were over. They had, you know, either retired or they were about to retire. So the Baseball Association, like the writers, they all got together and they said, okay, well, watch this. We won't vote a single one of you guys into the Hall of Fame, and that'll be your punishment. And now it creates this shroud, this dark cloud over the entire era that was basically like a 10-year stretch. And any single person who played in that era but is now about to retire, you know, it creates kind of this doubt to if they played clean, even if they did do it the right way. Players like Derek Jeter or Ken Griffey Jr. who did play clean, it creates this shroud even if they didn't. And I think that's exactly what happened to Sinister Serpent. I think that Konami really looked at the GOAT format and they said, you know what, we just don't like this. The games are slow. There aren't a lot of direct battles. This isn't how we envisioned the game when we did the TV show. So you know what we're going to do? We're just going to clear off the entire desk. We're going to start fresh. Any cards that look even remotely like they have to do with GOAT format and typical chaos decks, you know, BLS and Pot of Greed and Graceful Charity, Delinquent Duo, Ring of Destruction, Premature Burial, Snatch Steal. You know what? All you guys, get your bags, get out. And I'm pretty sure Sinister Serpent was walking in the room as they were talking, and they said, oh yeah, you too, Serpent, get out. All of you guys are banned. And Serpent's sitting there thinking, well, what did I do? I'm not even that good. And he said, you know what? Sorry, death by association. You're a staple in the deck. You gotta go. And it kind of made sense then because Tribe Infected Virus was a great card and it was a lot more powerful than it would be now. But I look at Sinister Serpent and people think that it creates advantage, but it really doesn't. It creates pseudo advantage. Like, what can you really do with the advantage? Like, that's the problem I have. One of Sinister Serpent's biggest assets is that it creates advantage, but it's pseudo advantage. You can't do anything with it. Like if it's Dino Rabbit versus Windups, and Dino Rabbit has 5 cards and Windups has 4, you can do something with that other card. I mean, that 5th card might be a Sabersaurus, which you can summon and attack with. It can be a Forbidden Lance, which you can protect your monsters with, or which you can use to make your monsters kill their monsters. I mean, it might be an MST that destroys one of their cards. What are you doing with a Sinister Serpent? If that's your last card, what is it doing? It can't you don't ever want to summon it in almost any situation. You can't really synchro with it because it's level 1. Like, what are you actually doing with it? And the next thought that I had was Sinister Serpent's probably one of the most splashable monsters ever. It might be the most splashable monster ever, but what deck right now would massively upgrade? Like, what deck would massively improve or benefit from running this card? I mean, Insectors, maybe, and I really tried to think outside of the box here, guys, and I was dumbfounded. Like, I really couldn't think of anything. Like, Insectors was the only deck that I'm thinking, okay, this is a highly competitive deck. They have a need for Foolish Burial in the main deck. They can potentially run cards like Regeki Break to get rid of back rows, but is running Sinister really going to... Is it really going to help you get to your win condition faster? I don't think so. I'm not seeing it. You know, does it make your deck any better or more consistent? Not really seeing that either. I mean, if you filled your deck with more cards like Regeki Break and Phoenix Wind Blast, which would help Insectors, you know, and you'd have Sinister Serpent to pay the cost, it wouldn't necessarily make the deck better. It would just make it different. If anything, like, at its core, you'd still, it wouldn't really solve the problems that Insectors have. Like, if somebody Effect Veilers you, you're basically stunned for a turn and you might lose your Dragonfly in addition. Sinister Serpent doesn't solve that problem at all. I mean, somebody makes Doki and you basically lose. Sinister Serpent really doesn't stop that, because the same cards the same Regeki Breaks and stuff that you would be able to play, it's not like Insectors don't have cards to kill Doka. Now it's just most of the time the Rabbit player will have counter cards, or, you know, they just won't have those cards at the time that they need them. So how is Sinister Serpent massively upgrading any deck? I don't see it at all. So when I think, okay, well, if we unban this, would it really help any deck? Would it make any deck a tier higher? Not really seeing that. I mean, at least with Cold Wave, I told you guys up front, Cold Waves and Chaos Dragons would be ridiculous. I told you guys from the jump. Cold Wave does have some really broken plays. I'm not sure if Sinister Serpent has any broken plays at all. And everybody's counter argument to unbanning Sinister Serpent, it's pretty much the same. Oh, well, Capital G, it lets you use X card for free. Okay, so your only counter argument, your only real legitimate counter argument is that it lets you use 3 or 4 good, not great. Let's just put it out there. Not great cards. Phoenix Wind Blast isn't really great. Regeki Break isn't really great. They're good cards. They're not great cards. It lets you use maybe 3 or 4 good cards that no one plays. People haven't played these cards consistently since what? Teledad? I mean, when's the last time you saw a format where you had a tier 1 deck that consistently ran Phoenix Wind Blast or Regeki Break? Because Teledad is the last example I can think of. So you've got 3 or 4 cards that nobody plays ever, and it makes them actually feasible. And that's a reason why we leave Sinister Serpent banned. See, now you're drinking the Kool-Aid and I'm not buying what you're selling. I look at Sinister Serpent and I see a card that has absolutely no power by itself. It doesn't take any of our decks, any of our meta decks, and put them over the top. It doesn't give them any access to broken plays. It just makes a bunch of good cards actually feasible. It gives you advantage every turn, but it's pseudo advantage. You can't really do anything with it. I mean, it's not like you can put a Sinister on the field and say, bam, you can't stop that play, bitch. Like, it doesn't have any good plays. So, I mean, ultimately, I look at Sinister Serpent, I say, man, you were a victim of being in the GOAT format, which Konami clearly did not want any more of. And I look at this card and I almost feel stupid that I didn't realize this 3 years ago. Sinister Serpent should have never been banned, guys. Click an ad. Tell me what you guys think. Leave comments below. Let's see if we can get to 300 comments by, today is Wednesday, by Friday maybe. Alright, I'll talk to you guys later.